Though, even when Clara left, the relationship between Clara and Bright grew stronger with each passing day. Clara continued calling Bright on phone. Both of them found themselves bond together. Clara found herself pregnant with Bright's child. At first, it felt like a miracle, a chance at redemption, and a way to regain some semblance of control over her life. She couldn't deny the overwhelming joy that came with knowing she would be a mother, but it was also a realization that she had gone against her friend, against everything she had once held dear. Her pregnancy became a weapon in her mind, a means to reclaim her place in Grace's life. Clara's return to Bright's home, though under the guise of pregnancy, was an emotional blow to Grace. It felt like betrayal, a painful reminder of everything she had lost. Grace had already endured the agony of Ocken's infidelity, and now Clara was making a play for the man she had once loved. It shattered Grace to see Clara, who had once been her closest friend, now living in her home and carrying the child of the man she had been married to. Clara's return to Bright's life forced Grace to confront the pain she had tried to bury. She could no longer stand the thought of her family being torn apart by the woman who had once been her confidant. Filled with heartbreak and anger, Grace couldn't bear to stay in the same house with Clara any longer. The weight of her friend's betrayal, coupled with the emotional scars left by Ocken's death, became too much for Grace to bear. She filed for a divorce from Bright, believing that their marriage had been irrevocably broken. Bright, still deeply in love with her despite everything, refused to grant her the divorce. He believed that they could rebuild their family, that the hurt could be healed over time. But Grace knew, deep down, that the trust between them was gone, shattered beyond repair by both Ocken and Clara. Bright's refusal to let go of their marriage devastated Grace, and she begged him to let her go, to allow her to move on for the sake of their children and her own peace of mind. She pleaded with him, telling him that she couldn't continue living in the same house with Clara, that the pain of seeing her every day was unbearable. Bright, however, was torn. He loved Grace with all his heart, and the thought of losing her was more than he could handle. He promised Grace that he would try harder, that he would do whatever it took to make things right. But Grace, feeling suffocated by the weight of the broken relationship, couldn't continue living in a lie. She made the painful decision to leave, to take their children and start fresh. The moment Grace left, the house that had once been filled with warmth and laughter became cold and desolate. Clara, having finally gotten what she wanted, knew she was now living the life she had always dreamed of. But the victory felt hollow. The absence of Grace, who had once been her closest friend, left Clara feeling more alone than she had ever been. The guilt that had once plagued her was replaced by a deep emptiness. She had gotten Bright, she had won his love, but she could see the toll it had taken on everyone involved. Clara's pregnancy, which should have been a joyous occasion, now felt like a constant reminder of the pain she had caused. Bright, unable to cope with the loss of Grace and the toll that the broken family had taken on his mental health, fell into a deep depression. The absence of Grace, the woman he had truly loved, weighed heavily on his heart. He couldn't understand why everything had crumbled so quickly, why the family he had built had fallen apart so violently. He was consumed by guilt and regret, unable to forgive himself for the mistakes he had made in his marriage. Clara, despite her role in his heartbreak, tried to comfort him, but her presence only seemed to remind Bright of the one person he wanted back in his life, Grace. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Bright's condition worsened. His physical health deteriorated as his emotional and mental state continued to decline. He couldn't escape the haunting thoughts of his past, the memory of his failed marriage, and the painful loss of Grace. He spent countless nights alone, drowning in the despair of what he had lost, what he had failed to hold on to. Clara, despite her best efforts, couldn't pull him out of his depression. She watched as the man she had once hoped to build a life with slipped away, his health deteriorating before her eyes. In the end, Bright's grief became too much to bear. The constant pain of losing Grace and the weight of his own guilt took its toll on his body. One fateful night, after months of suffering, Bright succumbed to the stress and sadness that had consumed him. His death was as tragic as it was inevitable, a result of the brokenness that had surrounded him for so long. Clara, now pregnant with his child, was left to face the aftermath of the complex and painful relationship. She was left with nothing but the memory of a man she had tried so desperately to hold onto, a man who had been consumed by the weight of his past. Grace, upon hearing of Bright's death, was devastated. Despite everything that had happened, she had never stopped caring for him. She had always hoped that one day, they would be able to find their way back to each other. But now, with Bright gone, all that was left was an overwhelming sense of loss. She mourned not only the man she had loved but also the family they had once dreamed of building together. Grace's heart ached as she realized that nothing would ever be the same again. The pain of losing Bright, of seeing him unravel under the weight of the broken relationship, would stay with her forever. In the end, both Clara and Grace were left to pick up the pieces of their lives. The damage caused by Ocken's manipulations, Clara's betrayal, and the emotional toll of the broken marriages had left them both scarred. Clara, now a single mother, was left to raise her child without the support of the man she had tried to claim for herself. Grace, too, was left with the haunting memory of the love she had lost. Neither woman knew what the future would hold, but they both understood that they would never be the same. The pain of their past would follow them, shaping their lives in ways they could never have anticipated.